Welcome to Monday's edition of the Floating Head Chronicles. This here is Chris Skinner. If you don't know who he is, stay tuned. I will let you know. Tied to J.P. Miller. Now, Skinner became a quadriplegic at the age of 20, a year after he'd been in the Army because of a car crash. He and Suzy fell in love when she was assigned to him as a physical therapist while he recovered. 2 weeks before Skinner passed, he confronted J.P. Miller, demanding that he ends his alleged affair with Suzy, who was his wife of 17 years at the time. Now, of course, J.P. Miller repetitively told people that he did not have an affair with Suzy, but earlier in the month, Suzy admitted to the affair because there's a separate legal case that Miller is facing regarding allegations that he raped a girl who was 15 in 1998. He also assaulted her again in 2023, which sparked the memory of her have been through this with J.P. Miller prior. So that's ongoing as well. But Suzy had told everybody that she was in a relationship with J.P. Miller and that they had had an affair during the time of 2021, which lines up with exactly what Chris was stating. Now, Chris Skinner fell out of the church of the Solid Rock Ministries that was run by J.P. Miller, and this was about like 4 or 5 months before his death, after attending that worship there for 3 years. He definitely voiced that he did not like the pastor of the church, and he did stop going to the church. He was in some emotional pain, and he was having a hard time. He was pulling away and distancing himself. Now, new evidence has emerged suggesting the drowning of Army veteran Chris Skinner was not an accident, as they previously believed. His uncovered footage has caught the attention of investigators and led to the reopening of the case. It had been kept under wraps until a new series of events leading to Skinner's ultimate demise reveals suspicious activities and raises questions about initial ruling of his death as accidental. Now, in the footage, Skinner can be seen waiting for several seconds, then his wheelchair accelerates in a straight line towards the pool with no attempts to turn or slow down. With no one around to save him, he drowned while strapped to his chair. He is seen attempting to pull his head up a few times, but is unable to do so, and the motion-activated camera stopped recording. Remember, he had confronted J.P. Miller 2 weeks prior, and the CCTV footage read 6:56 on the camera's timestamp, but had not been adjusted for daylight savings, and he wasn't found until 40 minutes later. Now, this was ruled an accident at the time, but new evidence has reopened the whole case. Remember, now this happened in 2021, 3 years before Mica Miller was found dead in North Carolina, the state park, from self-inflicted wounds. Now, this is J.P. Miller, if you guys don't know him, and he had been around for a while doing the craziest stuff with his sermons and everything else, aside from being a leader of this Solid Rock ministry and running it. His sermons were so bizarre. If you ever got to hear them before they got removed from YouTube, he basically would take Bible verses and twist and alter it to mean the way that he wanted it portrayed. His sermons were so far-fetched and so far out there that it was really like bizarre that there was such a group and a following for this guy, and it just didn't even make any sort of sense. Like, his wife would accuse him of cheating, and he'd go out and make a fool out of her in front of the whole ministry and then portray Bible verses of why she was wrong. So very good at master manipulating people, and clearly very successful at the cult-like setting that he had got going on. Now, he'd been charged with a bunch of different things overall. I mean, we've seen him do some crazy stuff. He tapped the hat of a reporter and got arrested for assault charges on that. Besides the case with the girl who's claiming that this happened to her when she was 15, and then again in 2023. There's also a lot of stuff that had been hushed inside of the ministry that has been circulating around amongst the people that no longer are members. And then there's this here, where conveniently this woman had a whole husband and he had a whole wife. Well, the husband succumbed to his injuries, and 3 years later, his was no longer around either. And it seemed like they both were trying to portray that both of these were self-inflicted, that these people were just so lost without JP and Suzy over there that they decided to take their own lives, which nobody in the family or anybody close to or evidence it lines up to even believe that sort of shit. Now, Mica Miller was a very beautiful woman, And her situation was so bizarre because she had been freed from this man. Finally, he was controlling every aspect. He groomed her since she was young, and she was watching the children that he had with another woman, and then basically controlling every aspect of what she did, where she went, tracked her. She had told people about it. She was doing so much to remove herself from him. She felt freed, filing the divorce papers, and then like fills up her gas tank, goes to the bank, does basic things, has things that she's got lined up, and she's seems so positive and happy about a new life for herself, and then goes and unalives herself in the woods where magically somebody's there and sees and like picks up her belongings before anybody else can get to it, and then calls in, but that guy's magically nowhere to be found too. Somebody had said that he is no longer living. If you guys find that, let me know, because I just knew that he's nowhere to be found nowadays after he was the only sole witness in that area at the time, which I don't know why he would be in the swamp and happen to be there at the same time. All of it was weird. JP's car had tagged, or like his mobile device had tagged in the area. There was a lot of things there that they should have investigated. And the fact that they weren't divorced yet, but he still had legal rights over what happened to her, was so bizarre. The fact also that he talked about in a sermon how he had laid next to her for a couple days. Like, the fuck? And he was wearing her necklace. Like, the whole thing about it was weird. He didn't cry or show, he just did these crocodile things, and it was so weird. He did of course he made sure that he had the funeral services at his church for her and made her look like a fool, and the whole thing was embarrassing and such a disgrace for such a beautiful soul. And everybody's just wanted justice for Mica because none of it made sense. So I'm now excited that all these things are starting to come forward, and now they're reopening this case because maybe it will draw more light to what happened with Mica. Maybe people should be looking, but I bet you after being cremated and everything else, they got nothing to go on, and they're not going to have enough to even do anything with poor Mica. So odds are she probably will never get justice, but we know that this man is no good, and definitely is the reason why she's no longer here. Now, sad, this guy gets hurt in his 20s. He gets injured. He becomes a paraplegic. This woman, Suzy, takes care of him. They have kids. They live together, married for 17 years. Go into that church, and, for the 3 years before whatever happened to him, um, then his wife does this with the pastor, and now she's just living this luxurious happy life with the pastor over here. It just seems so crazy because you've been with him through the worst and you've helped him through everything, and you're going to leave him for JP Miller, which clearly you saw that whole relationship was very toxic if you didn't witness it. This lady, I don't know, but I have no sympathy for this woman at all. And I hope that they do come to find out what happened, because it was odd that her and JP Miller show up 40 minutes after this guy's passing. We just happen to be in the area, in the neighborhood, is to take a little paparoni over there. Like, I just don't understand why JP Miller showed up at all, knowing this guy didn't like him at all. So it just leads me to believe that they were together at the time, and then both went over. Or they were there and never left, just to come back and make it look good. Razzle dazzle. Now, I'm hoping that this family gets some justice for poor Chris, because he's been through a lot in his life, and then got listed as if he just unalived himself. And as we have uncovered, it just doesn't seem to be that way. Why? He had been living in these, like, basically an advocate for people and saying you can do things. You're not strapped to a chair. You can be free. His wife just cheating on him is not going to be the end of the world. This man's been through a lot worse. So it was just really bizarre that they just, like, hey, yep, he just drove in there and call it a day, guys. Nothing else to see here. But I'm hoping that we get answers. Maybe if they find some more here, we can have, I'm hoping that it ties back. Because remember, the feds did go in around November time frame to JP Miller's house and did take some stuff that they had gathered. So I'm hoping they were able to get some information to help in this case now that they've reopened it. And maybe we'll get some answers for him and for Mica, and for anybody else that he has hurt along the way. Hopefully they speak out too, and we can get some closure on this. Until JP Miller's in prison, there's never going to be anything quiet or just goes away. This guy is always going to be back up in the news because he keeps getting away with stuff, so he feels like he's untouchable until someone corrects that. So I want to know what you guys have found on this journey, because this is just, if you've ever looked at the J.P. Miller, Mica Miller case, it is insane. And a lot of it has been removed from the internet, but if you ever get to see some of this guy's sermons, I tell you, let's have a discussion, because fucking oddest shit I ever saw in my lifetime. I didn't even know why YouTube would allow that to be up there. But hit all the buttons and tell me what you guys think, and I hope you have a good rest of your night.